Today we're doing a retrospective review of The Funhouse. Pay to get in, pray to get out.
Who will dare to face the challenge of the Funhouse?
Directed by Tobe Hooper, this is a movie that takes place at a carnival. There's a fun house there, and Amy and her friends are going on a double date, and they decide to spend the night in the fun house. It's a risky move, but they wanted to have sex, so, you know, it is what it is. Best of luck to them. Unfortunately, they did not know that there is a creepy monster guy who lives in the basement, and after witnessing a murder, they're playing another game tonight, and the prize is their life. This is a recommendation from Jason Williams over on Patreon. He's recommended this a bunch, as well as I Know the Boss, who doubled down and said, yeah, you should definitely watch this movie. It's one that neither of us have seen. This is a first-time watch. We did record a Patreon exclusive commentary. If you want to watch along with us, link is in the description and the pinned comment. But we're going on to our likes. I like the idea of horror movies in carnivals and fun houses because there's creepy stuff. Even from the opening credits of this movie, you see all the creepy animatronics that exist inside the fun house. I think because they're decaying is what makes them the creepiest.
A carnival setting is just creepy in itself. You've got like the music where they're playing like the organ and like flute sounds or whatever, and you're just like, okay, this is making me uncomfortable. Everyone there, no offense, does look a little haggard.
You know how many carnies that watch us are gonna be offended by you?
I just said everyone there is haggard. I didn't specify who.
If there's any carnies watching, we apologize.
And we might as well just jump right in and spoil everything for you because the bat boy, I guess I would call him, because he looks kind of like a bat, our deformed Frankenstein monster, because he wore the Frankenstein mask and then he took it off and he had like fangs.
Yeah, I don't think he looked like a bat as much as you did. I thought he looked like Rawhead Rex personally, but like split in half a little bit. If you took Rawhead Rex and Belial from Basket Case and pushed them together, that's this guy.
Did he even have a name? We just kept calling him the Frankenchild. He looked creepy. The mask looked good. His hands, not so much.
No, I think that he still looked like a big rubber idiot. But this is probably something that comes with like watching it in 1080p. Back in the day, you watch this in the 80s, you know, it's grainy, it's gonna look a lot different than what it looks like now, so we can see the flaws a lot more. I thought he looked stupid. But I mean, in the best ways, you know?
And I will say, the opening to this film, as much of a ripoff as it was from Halloween,
it was a direct ripoff. They lifted Halloween straight up.
They totally did. It was still fun to watch.
Yes, like you got little Joey pulling pranks on his sister. The sister said like, hey, I'm gonna get you back.
I'm gonna get you so bad you're never gonna forget it!
Which never came into play. We'll talk about that in a bit. Some of the scares within the funhouse were pretty fun. Like there's a little trap door and you're like, well, didn't see that coming. Or a skeleton pops out of the ground once. Some of the banter between the couples as they're like spying on the girls that can wiggle and dance.
They wiggle and they dance. They wiggle and they dance.
You know, there's some fun moments, but not a lot. And we understand that you're not gonna love this.
You're not gonna like it.
But we're gonna go on to the dislikes now.
And can I just start by saying, my vision of a funhouse is more of something that you would walk through that's interactive with like floors that move and bright lights and like clowns and things. Like that to me is a funhouse. This is like a haunted ride.
Almost like a wax museum on rails.
It shouldn't have been called a funhouse because there was nothing fun involved in it.
Asshole.
Hey, why don't you call an asshole? Asshole.
Not the biggest gripe of this movie. The biggest gripe is that you don't give a shit about the characters. Like, yeah, sure, Buzz is cool.
Buzz is a terrific guy.
When you're stoned, Charles Manson's a terrific guy.
Richie is whatever. But Liz, who we didn't even know her name until like the end of the movie, like right when she was about to die, and Amy, the main lead, is just probably the worst final girl of all time. She does nothing in this movie. It's all revolving around her and her brother. Like, he sees them go into the haunted house and he just waits outside and does nothing. So he's equally as useless. Once they get into the haunted house, I think she has maybe 4 lines.
She squeaks a lot.
She
and her mouth is always open.
And she's just like in awe, like, ah.
Catching flies.
But she barely does anything. When she does have the confrontation at the end with our Frankenboy, She uses the crowbar to go and hit him, and he catches it, and it's his fault that he accidentally like hits a breaker panel or a fuse box. It really didn't matter if she was involved.
That didn't even kill him. Because then we got like 3 minutes of her just like watching him going down the conveyor belt and just like sitting there while we're just like, okay, we know what's gonna happen. He's gonna like pop back to life and grab you.
It was like Austin Powers honestly like, no, stop. Just waiting for him to come by. Like, what do you mean? Of course he's coming your way. Do you not see the track?
And it took like 10 minutes of her like moving around the gears before he even came down. Like, it just kept looking back at the shot like, oh, when's he gonna drop? When's he gonna drop? There was a lot of needless stuff happening throughout this film, especially in the end. Final showdown, it was just bad. Going into it as a first time watch and seeing the opening credits, seeing the name, all I kept thinking was this was gonna be people trapped in a funhouse and animatronics were gonna come to life and kill them.
You can't knock the movie because it wasn't what you thought it was.
No. It's just the intro made it seem like the animatronics were gonna have more of a part to it.
It doesn't matter at the end of the day because we need to assess this on what we actually got. And what we got was just a long time of people just like fooling around in a carnival, not really doing much, like spying on some ladies, talking about sex in the washroom and being like accosted by a homeless woman who's like, nope, God's watching you.
He hears everything.
And going to a fortune teller and just like being high. Nothing really happened. And then they get into the actual fun house. They have sex. They witness the murder. They lurk around for a while. There were scenes where they just walked around for 8 full minutes and did nothing. They walked downstairs, went into like investigate, and then went right back to where they witnessed the murder and just sat there and waited.
It's not like stuff couldn't happen. Like, that's the issue. Like, when it came to the final, like, realization, like, oh, someone is in our attraction who witnessed this murder, we need to go get them, it didn't really become like a cat and mouse game.
What are y'all doing up there? You know you're trespassing on private property.
It was weird, and Joey's still walking around the park, which had like a strange fake out. I thought he got captured by the one guy, and then it turned out he was like captured by a really nice carnival man.
It looked like there was gonna be a problem with him, but there was no problem with Joey. Joey just was at the park. He was scared by the monster. He was grabbed and saved by a guy, and his parents came and picked him up. So why did Joey even exist in this movie?
Yeah, like, was it all for that one shot to just have like Amy screaming into the fan like, Daddy!
It's very weird. There are a lot of situations in this movie that felt completely useless. Like the whole setup of Joey pranking his sister in the beginning, and she's like, I'm gonna get you. You never know when it's gonna come, but it's gonna come at some point.
I'm gonna get even with you. You're not gonna know when or where.
So you're like, okay, are we getting April Fooled here? Is there gonna be like an overarching prank that is all just to get back at Joey, because that makes sense based on the intro to this film. Joey has nothing to do with the rest of the movie aside from wandering around. And Amy was never once considering pranking her brother. Or was it mentioned? She didn't care about him because she's on a date. There are a lot of setups that just didn't make any sense to the story and were just filler. Mom is a great example. They have a shot of her like drinking alcohol. At times Amy is like, oh, I wonder if my mom's okay.
Is Mom all right?
And they don't really elaborate. They're just like suggesting that it's because she's a drunk. When she shows up to pick up Joey, she's drunk.
We'll get right straight home to bed.
But it's not like she's beating anybody. She's not doing anything. She's just drunk.
Yeah, she just likes to drink.
Same. You're not calling to check up on me. And it doesn't matter if I'm drunk. If I'm doing something problematic while I'm drunk, okay. But like the mom being drunk had nothing to do with the movie, but they focused on it so long with like camera shots. Like camera just lingers on her as she's stumbling around. Like who cares? Especially the carnies. The carnies don't give a fuck if she's drunk.
And that was another thing too. You had all these like side interaction stories, like the homeless people never came into play. Build them up, and it's like, okay, are they gonna do anything? Is like the homeless woman who's preaching about God gonna like do something? And
right, like
it just never came to be.
It's a very weird movie. And I know it sounds like we're just bashing this, and we are, but I also understand that a lot of people watching this video are fans of this movie. Like, understand that this is our first time watching. We had no prior nostalgia. There was no other influence. We didn't even know the synopsis going in. This is just us palling around, having a couple drinks, watching a movie as friends. That's it. And it was just like, I don't see the appeal of this movie at all.
Yeah, like we can't even say like, oh, the kills were so cool because, all right, Richie's death, it was predictable. When like the shape was coming like towards you in the cart, you're like, oh, it's Richie, and Buzz is gonna hit him with the axe. And yeah, okay, the aftermath looked fine, and that's pretty much the only real kill that you
we get the sword kill where he pushes him onto the thing.
That's the thing, like we see people get impaled or stuck in gears, but like you just kind of see it after.
Like I feel like there should have been a gorier cut and all the gore was removed because none of these kills like you saw any blood except for like the little sword.
Or like when it was like Frankenboy's hand when he had like the blood from his nails.
But there's no like sprays on the walls when he's going through. She's right near a fan. He could have put her head right through it. It would have been awesome. Now it's time for our final thoughts and ratings. As big of a fan as I am of 80s movies, this one just did not hit with me. I didn't like the characters. Like I thought Buzz was a dickhead right off the bat and he ended up being the best character. And the rest of the people just felt like they had no personality. It didn't matter to me whether they lived or died. And that's a huge problem when you're supposed to care if they live or die. This movie had way too many loose ends and just like useless stuff set up that just didn't come to fruition. I did like the look of our monster, but he was kind of weird. He was gooping all over the place, you know, busting too early sometimes.
Nothing to be ashamed of. It happens to the best of us.
And he was able to like track down and kill people when necessary, but he's just kind of weird too. I did like his crazy hair. I forgot to mention how wacky and wild his hair was. I thought that was funny, but like most of this movie I really didn't care about. It is what it is. They're not all gonna hit. I like the carnival setting, but I probably won't go to the funhouse again. So I'm gonna give this 1.5. It ain't over till the fat lady sings out of 5.
As a first time watch, I was pretty disappointed with this film. The characters were the weakest part of this film. You're watching them do nothing. It's just kind of boring. It wasn't really a fun house. It was more of a haunted ride. So that also kind of sucks when you're like going into it thinking like, oh, this is gonna be a fun house. It's gonna be wacky and crazy. And that isn't the case. But the whole atmosphere was awesome. I loved the haunted attraction. I liked all our animatronics and I liked our monster. Like to me, the Frankenboy was cool and the story had a good concept. It just didn't deliver with what I thought it was gonna be and what it probably could have been. So with that being said, I'm gonna give this film 1 Xena Warrior Fortune Teller out of 5.
As always, thank you for watching. Like this video and comment below with your thoughts on the film if you've seen it. If you haven't and you do want to check it out, watch along with our Patreon commentary. It's not as pessimistic as this was. Like, it's not as negative. We're having fun. We're cracking jokes. I think you'll have a good time if you listen to the commentary. Links in the description. If it's your first time here, make sure you subscribe to the channel, stay up to date with everything we're doing here on Bloodbath TV.
Out of here, you bad brat!